afraid of the dark.
This happened in late 1941, early 1942, a few months before my birth. Grandpa Alexander began. The family lived in Stalingrad, preparing for evacuation. Grandpa and Grandma, Mom, and 4 children. Dad had left for the front not long before that. He was fighting somewhere near Moscow. There were no letters from him, and Mom was very worried. At the end of November, they received a notification stating his death and place of burial. Mom cried. She was comforted. Although everyone felt uneasy, the head of the family, a loving and beloved father, husband, and son-in-law, had perished. It was bad without him, very bad. But they had to be strong, live on, survive. One day, Mom was home alone, cooking in the kitchen. Casting a fleeting glance in the mirror, she looked away, but suddenly paled with horror just now. In the background of the mirror, she saw my father. She looked again, but he was gone. Already convinced it was her imagination, she suddenly felt someone stroking her hair. Terrified, she rushed out of the apartment and sat at the neighbors until Grandma, Grandpa, and the children returned. She told the neighbor about the appearance of the ghost, to which the neighbor replied, "He came to bid you farewell. It's not even been 40 days yet. He might come again, Grandma." And Grandpa said it was all in her imagination. Soon, Mom learned she would have another child, that's me. And that same night, she dreamt of Dad. They were walking together, joyful and carefree. "If it's a boy, name him Alexander," Dad said. "It's a pity I won't be able to see him." "Why won't you?" "Won't we be together?" Mom asked, forgetting it was a dream. Dad said nothing, just silently hugged her. And in the morning, waking up, she cried. Grandma urged her to calm down, to think about the future baby. Mom began to fear the reappearance of Dad, yet at the same time, she longed to see him. One night, she suddenly heard a quiet voice calling her. It was my father's voice. Terrified, Mom wrapped herself in a blanket and after some time felt my father's heavy hand on her shoulder. She was sure it was him. After some time, in a daze, she felt the ghost leave. At that moment, my little brother Valerie started crying, and Mom got up to soothe him, singing a lullaby and forgetting about the ghost. She continued to see Dad in her dreams, heard noises at night. She couldn't sleep for a long time. Afraid to listen to the silence, she thought someone was in the kitchen when everyone else was asleep in the room. More than 40 days had passed since they received the notification, but the ghost still made its presence known. However, not as vividly. Mom began to calm down, especially since subsequent events made everyone doubt Dad's death. A friend of Grandma suggested rereading the funeral text. Grandpa reviewed it, and only then noticed that the place of death was incorrect. It was unlikely that Dad could have been there at that time. In early spring, Mom went to the village where Dad was allegedly buried. Judging by the stories of the locals, the deceased soldier was very young. Clearly not him, just a complete namesake of my father. Mom soon returned home. In June 1942, Mom returned from the market when my little sister ran out of the house to meet her. "Dad's back," she exclaimed joyfully. Mom tried to keep calm because she couldn't afford to be excited. I started pushing in her stomach. At home, she saw Dad alive and well, and he hugged his loved ones for a long time. Everyone rejoiced at his return. He talked about the battles he participated in. When Mom told him about the ghost and the dreams, he replied, "It's all because of nerves. You convinced yourself that I died and will never see each other again, so you imagined a ghost to see me occasionally, and you had dreams with me for the same reason." Soon, Dad took the family to Kazakhstan. He himself returned to Stalingrad and went through the entire battle. So I was born in Eerie, where my early childhood was spent. In June 1945, an interesting incident occurred. I don't remember it myself, they told me. My dad was returning from the front, walking through the city to his family, when a 3-year-old boy ran up to him and hugged him by the leg. My daddy's come back. Dad squatted down, wanting to explain to the boy that he was mistaken, but suddenly saw that the boy looked very much like him. And he immediately saw Mom and Grandma hurrying after me. I don't know how I understood then that it was my dad, because we only saw each other for the first time then. He was alone. Jeremiah Manson had been dead for 7 days now, his soul trapped in the house he was murdered in. Every now and then he'd walk into the basement and stare at his own corpse. 6 stab wounds to the chest. Jeremiah was almost disappointed at how little it took to end his life. The creaking of the floorboards told Jeremiah that someone was in the house. Jeremiah strolled up the stairs and found 3 boys in the living room. Henry, Vic, and Reginald. Jeremiah recognized them from school. The 3 of them made his life a living hell. An evil smile spread on Jeremiah's face. Payback time. How long has this shithole been abandoned? Henry asked. 50 years. Good thing nobody's tried to fix it up. The door shut by itself, scaring them. The fuck was that? Reginald almost screamed. Just the wind, Henry said, then winced as something bit him. Henry touched the back of his neck and looked at his fingers, covered with blood. Henry. Reginald started. What? Your neck. Something cut the back of your neck. Vic inspected the back of Henry's neck, finding a deep knife wound. Jesus. How bad is it? Henry asked. Looks like someone tried to cut you open, Vic said, then winced as something cut him. Vic looked at his wrist, which now had a gash. Guys, we need to go. You guys are over. Whatever Henry was about to say was cut off by a blood-curdling scream. Henry collapsed, blood leaking from a wound in his back. The door opened, Vic and Reginald running out without looking back. Jeremiah stood over Henry, blood-stained knife in hand. Before Jeremiah could finish him off, he realized something. If he killed Henry, he was stuck with him forever. No, fuck that. Jeremiah dragged Henry out of the house, the boy screaming as he was moved by an invisible force and left on the front porch. Henry stayed on the front porch till his father arrived and called an ambulance. Henry's father completely dismissed his son's claims of ghosts in the house and believed that Henry was merely attacked by someone at school. The next day, Jeremiah was once again looking at his own body. Screaming from upstairs caught his attention. Jeremiah ran upstairs just in time to see Freddie, the man who killed him, stabbing a blonde girl. 2 things occurred to him. 1, the girl was as good as dead. 2, if retaliated against Freddie, he was stuck with him. So Jeremiah returned to the basement, not batting an eyelash when Freddie dropped the girl's corpse in the basement next to him. Jeremiah closed his eyes and did something he hasn't done since he died. He fell asleep. Jeremiah slept for what felt like years, someone shaking him awake. Jeremiah opened his eyes, finding the blonde girl staring at him. "You're alive?" he asked in confusion. "No, I'm not," she said, and turned towards their corpses still untouched. "Freddie got you too, Jeremiah." "Yeah, we need to leave." "We can't." "What?" "We died in this house. We're stuck here forever." The girl crumbled to the floor and began to weep. Jeremiah put his arms around her. He told himself he was doing it to comfort her. TJ's real reason was hadn't been this close to someone since his death. The girl eventually calmed down. Jeremiah continued to hold her. "My name is Gertrude," she said. Jeremiah, he said, sorry you have to deal with this alone. What are you talking about? Said Gertrude, I'm not alone. You're here with me. She wasn't alone. He was here with her. She was here with him. He wasn't alone.